Hello, I'm Alicia, one half of the development team behind the gardening game GOLEMBERT. Everything art related in this game was done by me, and my current task is to draw all the character expression portraits. I am taking you through my thoughts, process, and small little tips to this topic today. And if you're interested in a hand-painted, cozy, and character-driven permaculture gardening-inspired game, consider wishlisting our game GOLEMBERT on Steam. The link will be in the bio below. It helps us out a lot. And thank you. Many 2D games use dialogue portraits next to the text on screen to enhance emotion and clarify who's speaking. We as humans are drawn to faces and like to read emotions, and many 2D games need to use a fixed perspective that often leaves the characters quite small on screen. This makes the face reading process way harder. That being said, dialogue portraits are commonly used in 2D games, but not always. The Pokemon series, for example, always had text boxes without portraits, even though the characters were really small on screen. So it really just depends on how important the emotions and NPCs are. Games like Harvest Moon, which is one of our main inspirations, made an effort to focus on the characters it displays. You, as a player, need to form a connection to the characters, either a friendly one, so you want to support them through making quests, etc., or a romantic one, because of the dating feature. Pokemon, on the other hand, mainly has fighting opponents as NPCs. It's way less important to form an emotional connection to those NPCs. We knew we wanted to have character portraits since the beginning. Even though the characters are fairly big on screen and the players can see them without any further stylization, which obscures any facial features like in Pokemon or Harvest Moon, our main objective with the portraits is the emotional supplement to the dialogue text. We had some basic friendly character portraits for nearly all characters for a long time now, and my current task is to finally produce all expressions for each character. The list of expressions is fairly long, as you see here. Nearly every character has roughly 10 expressions throughout their dialogues, and there are over 10 characters in the game. I would recommend to work on the characters' order based on when they appear in the game, like chronologically. This way you can implement the portraits right away and play them through at the beginning of the game. I'm very lucky to have Leon as the organization part of our team. He's a very lists and graphs kind of guy, which means that I get a full detailed list of every expression every character could need in a color-coordinated system, which signifies how often the expression gets used in dialogues. Therefore, also how important it is to produce this expression, or if it can be replaced by an already existing portrait, for example. The first characters you encounter are, of course, the player character GOLEMBERT, the Hermit, and Helio. I started the doodling phase for all three of them because my brain is easily bored and I like to jump between tasks. And it's also easier to brainstorm different ways of drawing the same expression. When one way of being angry isn't fitting the Hermit, for example, but it would suit Helio, then I can just shift it to him right away. The Hermit was the simplest for me to draw. It's a very expressive character with an extremely simple design. It was way harder to make GOLEMBERT expressive. The design was supposed to be inspired by clay vases. He's a very stiff and head-empty guy, but there's still a lot of dialogue where he's joking around or getting upset. A small and probably very weird tip that I use for most of my expressions, no matter if it's for this game or in my personal art, is to draw out the expression you want as an emoji first. It doesn't have to be an actual iPhone or Android emoji, but I mean the smiley face type of face with your intended expression on it. Trying to draw it directly in the design can be tricky and overcomplicate the expression, which can lead to it losing its meaning. Once you have a simplified expression down, you can then translate it onto the actual character design. Many of our NPCs are anthropomorphic, but we use very human facial expressions as references, so it's easier to first define the expression, second, then simplify it, and third, then transform it. Now to the actual drawing process. I start with drawing traditionally on paper. This is my typical work process for anything art related, so you see me do this in all environment, prop and UI processes too. I write down all the emotions I need for a character. This seems very obvious and redundant, but it's actually quite easy to get this wrong if you're not specific enough. Being happy and being excited, for example, are two very different things, but when you first draw them, they may seem similar at first. So keep your goal in mind as good as possible, especially when you have to make 100 portraits. Then I doodle the emoji expressions and start to translate them into the designs. This is a stage where proportions can be wacky. Everything can be adjusted digitally later. Once I've doodled at least one sketch per expression, I then photograph it on my iPad and import it into Procreate. I often use a canvas that fits 5 to 6 portraits on it. Because I already have one basic portrait per character, I can use this as a guideline for the right proportions. Bert and the Herbert are very straightforward in this process. The fun lied with Helios' design. Because he's a flame, he's able to change his proportions according to the emotion. The first few characters are also the only ones that have different rendering styles than all the other characters in the game. The Herbert is very simple and graphic, while Helios' line art is drawn with a very textured brush, to give him a different look and feel than the, let's say, solid characters. The last step after finishing the portraits is to import them into Unity. Leon set up the dialogue system, so I only have to pay attention to the portrait size. In our case, they all need to be the same size, which means that it's better to leave some extra space to fit some details for space-intensive expressions later on. In conclusion, my overall tip for expressions is to think about the message you want to get across, simplify and exaggerate the expression. Use references, of course. You can't draw something if you don't know how it looks. And try to translate it onto the design without too much fear of messing up proportions. Everything can be adjusted later on with a guideline drawing. And the most annoying tip is that with something that's art related and with also everything that's non-art related, this is something that comes with practice. Characters are easy for me to draw, while the ships in our game had to be redrawn a million times before they were even okay. Like the meme template says, make it first, you can make it perfect later. Thank you for staying with me throughout the video. It was nice chatting with you again, and we will see each other next time. Have a cozy beginning of winter, and goodbye.